Hello and welcome to ThoughtCast, the SPJIMR podcast, a rendezvous of a corporate head and an academy, a conversation about business and leadership. Today we have with us Mr. Dheeraj Sinha, CEO and Chief Strategy Officer South Asia of Leo Burnett. He is the author of 2 bestsellers on the Indian consumer market, India Reloaded and Consumer India. He hosts a podcast, Speak Easy, and he talks about leadership. He's creative, collaborative, and an inspiring leader in the advertising and media industry of India.
Dheeraj, thank you so much for coming on our podcast today. Really nice to have you here. I want to begin with asking you about your work. You know, a lot of us, a lot of my students, listeners may just be wondering, what is a regular day for you, for the CEO and Chief Strategy Officer of Leo Burnett? What's your work day like?
First of all, thank you, Vineeta, for having me. Looking forward to this conversation. I think the life of a CEO in a creative agency is like a dashboard, right? So unlike say the life of a functional head, when I was doing a chief strategy job, it was a vertical. So I would all day do strategy work, right? I would do thinking, I would meet clients, but everything is around strategy.
Yeah.
But when you're doing a CEO job, it's like a dashboard. So my morning may start with some crisis call, and when you're running an organization of our size, out of 365 days, 364 days, something will go wrong. If it is not going wrong, then there's a problem. Then things are not happening. So chances are the morning starts with some crisis call that kind of defines some parts of your day. It would then move on to some meetings. So a day would kind of flit between, say, a procurement meeting to brainstorming on some creative ideas, to strategy, to meeting new people to hire, to setting up processes for better functioning of the organization, to reviewing how your revenue is doing, to thinking of some new initiatives to launch, and in between, grabbing a quick snack, grabbing a quick coffee with your colleagues, having a small chat here and there. But that's really the day, the way it pans out.
Oh, that's exciting day and very busy. And I see that Leo Burnett has some very top-notch clients, like I've seen, like Spotify, etc. So how do you really solve problems for a client? How do you make them, make their message go out to the Indian users or South Asian users? What do you typically do for a client?
Yeah. So classically, Vineeta, our approach is that we don't start with advertising as a starting point. We start with what's the problem we're trying to solve, right? What's the problem we're trying to solve for a brand, or what's the human problem that we are trying to solve? And we agonize a lot on that. We agonize thinking, is this the real problem to solve? Is this the real issue which is blocking the outcome that we need for a certain brand, right? I'll illustrate this with an example. So say Spotify, as you mentioned, right? Now, you can take Spotify and you say it's an international brand coming to India, right? Music is about fun. Let's make some advertising. Let's show some young people with curly hair, a lot of tattoo and piercing, jumping around, listening to music, right? That would be your classic response, right? Show some party shots, some neon, and you're done with a music streaming app ad, right? But we don't start there. We started thinking deeper and bigger, and we said, what's really the role of music in the lives of India, right? And then we started thinking, and we observed. So for example, if you look around yourself, right, in the morning when you go into office, you'll see a lot of people getting down off the metro with headphones in their ear, right, and going about their everyday life, right? You will go to shops in India, people have headphones in their ear and going about their everyday life. So the whole insight that India is a Murphy Law country, right? Things will go wrong. Yeah, things will go wrong, right?
Yeah.
You'll wake up in the morning and something would have gone wrong. You would have missed your bus. Your help would not have turned up, right? Your father is being cranky. Your boss is being demanding, and so on and so forth, right? What will go wrong, right? And music helps you hustle on. Music is the grease that makes that life, that living, a tad bit easier. right? And that's the insight we took, and our first campaign was called, there's a playlist for that. So what we did was we put up 1151 billboards, right, raising conversation. So we put up a billboard on the other station saying, got here not by choice but by chance, train harder, there's a playlist for that. We put up a billboard at the ISRO signal in Bangalore saying, shooting for the moon but stuck at a signal, there's a playlist for that. So on and so forth. We put up billboards at Delhi University colleges saying, Hindu boys took all the Stevens girls, there's a playlist for that. So we put directed, geo targeted messages like this, and then took the chatter on online, right? So a bulk of amplification, this idea happened online, and the brand got to a great start, all because we were thinking, what's the problem to solve? Right. So for example, another example, if I may give you, during the lockdown, right, the first lockdown, especially the 2020 lockdown, we realized that the whole education system shifted online, but there was also ugly patriarchy coming back. So say in households which cannot afford things so much, the boy of the house was prioritized over the girl of the house in terms of access to education online, right? And Whisper is a brand which is all about giving access to girls and keeping them in schools. That's our purpose as a brand. So we actually put together a platform called Mobile Shala, where we got education lessons, gadgets and access available to girls in Indian households, right, around our purpose. So these are a few examples of how we look at brands, how we look at problem solving, and the kind of work we do.
So Dheeraj, this is so much fun. I mean, the kind of work that you do. But I mean, how do you find the creativity? I mean, this must. How much time does it take to come up with these kind of ideas, these fantastic ideas that you guys get? I remember the Spotify campaign. It was wonderful.
Yeah. So it's a tough one. So I mean, from an outside perspective, it might look like that coming up with ideas like it's a child's play, and you can just get together and think of ideas. But there's a huge amount of rigor which goes into thinking, right? So we have a full-fledged strategy department which continuously sifts through data, insights, strategy, competitive mapping, what's going on in the environment, because all of that becomes the fodder for you to begin to think ideas, right? So a lot of work happens even before we start thinking creative, in terms of understanding the environment, understanding the consumer, looking at data, looking at which are the spaces that we can own, right? Which are the spaces which are owned? Where should we push the brand? So a lot of rigor goes in there. And then once the rigor happens, the rigor helps us narrow it down. It helps us say, okay, this is the space we want to take. Otherwise, you can go berserk. There are 365 ways to milk a cat, right? So unless you narrow down your objective or you narrow down your space, creativity will not happen. So we use strategy to narrow down a space for the brand or the objective or the problem that we have. And then we open it up from a creative perspective. So it's strategic narrowing and then creative widening is what happens. And then from a creative perspective, we just assimilate the idea. It's a hugely collaborative process as well, right? And it's easy to stop at the first answer, but we don't stop at the first answer. So like, okay, we've got this. Now, what else could we do? What else could we do? And you keep flushing ideas, and suddenly you reach somewhere and you say, wow, this sounds nice. This sounds simple and yet intuitive and exciting. And finally, a good test, Vineeta, of our work is that, will people find it exciting? Will they want to play with it? Will they want to share with it? Right? I mean, we just released an ad for one of our brands called HDFC Life, where we're talking about the COVID batch. Right. And there are so many questions around the COVID batch that, they've never gone to college or school, and have they really learned their lessons, and will they succeed in the life? And our whole campaign is about that, what this batch has learned in terms of resilience, how they've seen their parents fought and provide, fought for their well-being, and provide for them. No other batch has ever seen. So in fact, this is the most resilient batch ever. Now, that's the campaign we are running. So people should feel excited about the end output. And that takes a certain degree of simplicity, having crossed all the complexities.
And how much do then, this simple idea, but you also needed to should have the ability to go viral also, no? Probably every idea you have to think whether it will go viral also.
You want to, but it is tough. See, now the whole thing of virality is that people, I mean, my often joke stroke insight is that nobody wakes up in the morning, say, oh, wow, what a fantastic morning. Let me brush my teeth with Colgate toothpaste. People don't behave like that. I mean, people like myself who are in advertising marketing business, we get paid to create advertising. And therefore, we look at advertising with that degree of intensity, right? People are going about their lives. Every day they wake up in the morning, they might have issues, they might have things to sort out. And brands happen to collide in people's lives on a daily basis, right? And therefore, the content we create has to be more about them than about us. Right. And wherever you realize that the piece of content is talking about people, is talking about a human insight, is talking about something that touches people, chances are that will get shared. But if I talk only about myself, nobody's interested in that. And that's a balance that marketers of today are now beginning to learn, because Vineeta, the classical marketing theories always were obsessed with what I have to say. What is my unique selling proposition? Yeah. Classical marketing theories never dealt with how do you optimize for attention? How do you optimize for shareability? Those are all new concepts now being developed.
You're talking about classical marketing, Dheeraj, and in MBA education, there is a lot of classical marketing is also taught. Of course, digital marketing is taught. Yeah. Do you think that the kind of marketing we do and the kind of marketing you pursue in an big advertising company like yours is different?
Yeah, vastly so. And I'll explain this, Vineeta. See, so if you look at it, right, I mean, most of the marketing and advertising theories were born in Western context, and they were born in the era of television, right? So if you look at the idea of unique selling proposition, it comes from a belief that you can, at one point in time, you can only talk about one thing, right? Now that's false. Yes, that's absolutely false. So what we did was, because the entire marketing was hinged on television advertising, and in a TV spot, in a 30-second or 60-second TV spot, you could only say one thing. We took the supply side constraint and we put it on the demand side. The truth is that human mind is pretty complex. Right? You can hold multiple thoughts at a point in time. It is very layered. If you look at the kind of fiction that we read and we understand, we absorb, the way we live our lives is very layered, right? But today you can have something running on television. You can follow that up on digital. You can follow that up on outdoor. You can follow that up on content which is running on OTT. So suddenly, today at your hand, you can build multiple layers to the brand. So the idea of unique selling proposition doesn't hold good. So when I am conceiving of brands today, whether it's Amazon, Spotify, etc., we go with multiple-minded propositions. We say latest, we say largest. When we do campaign for PhonePe, we are saying सब जगह मिलता है, यहाँ भी चलता है, कुछ भी खरीद सकते हो. It's multiple-minded. It is not unique selling proposition.
Yeah. There's not one proposition. You're selling everything.
There's not one proposition. We are saying everything. And that's how we built these brands. Right?
Wow, so that's such an insight. Yeah. Brilliant.
I mean, second is, this whole idea of, what is my positioning? Right? Now, positioning is always in comparison to somebody else in the marketplace. Right? Now, in markets such as India, right? In a Western market, all your categories are saturated. So bulk of your work is in taking market share from somebody, right? But in markets such as India, 90% of my work, Vineeta, is in creating categories. I'm creating the category of music streaming in India for Spotify. I'm creating the category of e-commerce for PhonePe. I'm creating the category of ordering medicines online for pharmacy. I'm creating the category of digital payments for PhonePe. I'm creating the category of buying and selling used cars for Car Dekho, and so on and so forth. Right? 90% of my work is building categories. Right? Now there, it doesn't matter what my competition is doing. What matters is, am I being relevant to my audience? right? Does the audience care for calling for medicines on the phone? Does my audience care for calling for a mobile phone on Amazon? Does my audience care for listening to music on Spotify or through MP3, right? So relevance is greater than differentiation. But the entire classical marketing theory is obsessed with differentiation.
Yes.
Right. So that's the second big departure that we do. So they are huge departures from what the classical marketing theory was, because it was developed in a certain market context and a certain period of time, and those principles have changed dramatically. And because we mastered these principles in last, say, 5-8 odd years building these brands, is the reason now we know how to build success for these brands in India.
Spectacular success. Because I have looked at some of your campaigns and they are fabulous. Dheeraj, if I can just move from what the work you do for Leo Burnett, but also talk about your own journey as a leader and as a manager. I mean, how did you decide you wanted to get into this? And you went to MICA, of course. So when did you know you were going to go into advertising, and how did it happen?
I would say it was fairly an accident. I mean, I was quite a nerd. And I was heavily into studies. And I was at SRCC, Shriram College of Commerce, and there were a lot of my friends actually are CAs and consultants and KPMG and Arthur Anderson and so on and so forth. And I was heavily into debates, and I would go for all the debates in Delhi University and win them, more for the reason that gave me good pocket money. So you used to get 2,000 rupees if you won the debate, and we used to blow that money up. So that was really the primary motivation. But I enjoyed doing that. I realized that I could crack a joke and I could make people laugh. I realized I could build arguments. I realized that I could observe people and turn that into content. So I was enjoying that part, right? And then when SRCC ended, I had an option to, join KPMG and do CA and become a consultant. And I had the option to do MICA. And I thought that, I'm better at communications. And I took that plunge. And MICA was just about 2 or 3 years old. I landed at MICA and I said, oh my God, how am I going to succeed here? Because, everybody at MICA was cool, right? They all knew how to play guitars. They knew songs I never knew. They had read David Ogilvy. And here I was one nerd. I said, I'm going to be a big misfit here. And then I discovered this whole area of strategy planning. Right, that even all the work that goes around brand building and advertising, there's a huge part of thinking and inciting and research which happens there, and culture mapping which happens there. And I said that I can do this, and that's how my entry happened. And I was a planner for good about 17 odd years, right? Strategist. Okay. And I did that job for Asia. Out of 17, about 7-8 years, I did that for APAC, looking at some 16, 17 markets around Asia Pacific, China, Taiwan, Singapore, Indonesia, and so on and so forth. And then I had grouses. I was like, why don't we run the organization in this way? Why don't we put the money here? And why don't we do this? And I realized that I can't fire the gun on anybody else's shoulders, right? Why will anybody else implement my strategies in the way I want to run an advertising agency? And that's when I took up the job of CEO for Leo Burnett. And because I was excited about building the culture, I was excited about building an organization for tomorrow. And that's when I switched from just doing strategy to running a P&L. So that in short has been the journey.
And you've been happy with this journey. I mean, you clearly are. You enjoy your job.
Yeah, it's been tough. I have to say it's been tough because there's so much that you have to take in, and as a strategist, you are just running one function, and you have the choice of walking away from a meeting, or the choice of saying something and going away. You can throw tantrums, but as a CEO, right, the buck stops at you. Right. I mean, you are, and it was also baptism by fire, because early on into my CEO job, we also entered the pandemic. Right. And I remember March 2020, we all suddenly went to work from home, and I woke up in the morning and I said, infection and all is fine. But what will 500 people wake up today morning in my organization and do? What will they do? Right? What about the purpose? Because of course you want to be safe, but everybody needs something to do, which we don't talk about. right? And then I developed a tool that morning in my bathroom. I developed a tool that I called 036. So I said I will roll out a workshop model where I will say, okay, what are we doing in zero? What is the inside culture fuel that's going on in zero? And what are my equities as a business that I can solve for in zero? And what will similarly for 3 months from now and 6 months from now, we developed that toolkit and we ran over 50 workshops, Vineeta, with our clients. And we had everybody in our clients coming because they were all free. They were at home. They were joining through their laptops. So we had the CEOs, we had the product heads, we had the sales heads, everybody joining. And out of those
these
workshops,
are free workshops. You were just doing like a brainstorm.
Yeah, because these are my clients and my people, and I have to engage them. I'm sitting March 2020. Everybody's panicking. We want to employ ourselves productively, right?
Yeah.
We want to save jobs. We want to save value for our companies. We don't want to hurtle down. And from these workshops came, for example, the idea of weddings from home. So shadi.com is our client. And we realized that lots of shadis had to get postponed. And shadi in India is about Mahurat, right? Agar wo Mahurat mein nahi hua, to then now it will happen next year, right? Yes. So we cobbled up this digital platform called Weddings from Home. We got Pandit, we got Mehdi, we got Dhol, we got cards printed. We hosted at least 200 Zoom weddings.
Wonderful. That's a case study I would like to write about, Dheeraj. Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. So, I mean, it's kind of the other question that's just straight away comes to my mind is there your own leadership mantra that you think works well as a leader?
Yeah, I think what I have, and I have grown up through. I think we are trying to build an organization that we didn't have when I was growing up. I think that's where I'm coming from, and therefore the mantra one is that we have no helicopter leadership at Leo Burnett, right? So we are all fighting in the trenches with our people. We are all actively involved in work as a CEO, as a CCO, as a chief strategy officer. So when a brief comes or when a client comes, when you come to Leo Burnett, you get all of us. You get a Dheeraj Sinha, you get a Rajdeepak Das. You don't just get it's like you go to a very popular hospital and you ask the question, will the main guy do the operation or not? At Leo Burnett, the main guy will be there for your brand. Right. So it's all heads in the bucket. It's very highly involved model. There's no helicopter leadership and there is zero hierarchy. So the office that we built and we just inaugurated last month has no cabins. I don't have a cabin. I sit in an open space. Absolutely zero cabins. Mm-hmm. And that makes so much of difference, right? I mean, for us, the younger people, the young talent, right? I mean, they are at the forefront. They're cracking ideas. They're winning pitches and clients are loving it. So democracy, right? All heads in the bucket, very high intense environment and a culture of winning. I think those are the tenets of our success.
Wonderful. This sounds like really valuable insights. And I think a lot of us can learn from that. I know that you have been a thinker and you really put your mind deeply into things. That's why you got into writing perhaps. And I know that you've written 2 books already and very successful. And I think you did all that before you were 40, maybe your first book or around that time. How did you manage it?
So the first book actually, so my thing, Vineeta, always has been that I always keep questioning myself in terms of what am I adding back to the industry, to the organization. So I asked my question that before I asked the question, what am I being given, right? So my first book happened when I was, I think 32 or 33. Right, and I was speaking in Singapore at a SPJIMR forum, and the editor from John Wiley & Sons happened to be there, and she connected and we spoke, and she said, "Why don't you write a book?" And I was like, "Oh my God, people write a book when they're about to retire. I mean, and who writes a book at 32?" I honestly always wanted to write a book, but I wanted to write a fiction book, of small town love or some frothy stuff like that, which I've never.
I'm sure you'll do it. You'll still do it at some point.
Yeah. So and then that's what editors do. She shut me down and she said, "Oh, you already have 2 papers. These are 2 chapters, and let's think of 4 more chapters." And we thought of 10 chapters, and suddenly I was in a contract. And then for 1 year, I didn't write anything. And I was like, oh my God, now this contract is on my face. And then I sat down, I broke down everything, and then I gave it 3 months and I wrote my book. I was writing at airports, in flights, in the mornings, on weekends. So every filler time I had, I used that to write my first book. That's how the first book happened. And once you write, you write once, then you like the joy of putting your thoughts out. And that book, in fact, went on to become a part of the emerging market course at Wharton and so on and so forth. So you suddenly like that your ideas are reaching wider and they're getting wider acceptability, and people are connecting to you from, I mean, all over the place in the world, sending you, and that becomes intoxicating. And that's how then I wrote my second book.
Wonderful. And I know both of them have been a huge success, and I'm looking forward to your third one now. But talk about writing a little, if you will. You mentioned David Ogilvy earlier, and we know that Ogilvy was a big proponent of good writing, not just in advertising, but in general. There are things that he has written and he's widely quoted. But we also know that people don't pay that much attention to writing anymore. I think so. So what do you think? I mean, do you think otherwise, or what should we do? How to improve?
I provoke almost all my team members that please do not start thinking on a PowerPoint. Right? I request our younger folks that please do not. I mean, you can smell the piece of thinking when it has been thought on PowerPoint. Right. So I provoke my younger colleagues that please take up a piece of a paper or take a Word document, but first think, right? And first write down. So writing, to my mind, is an instrument of precision, right? It's an instrument of clarity, right? When you have clarity, your writing will show that clarity. When you're complex, so I mean, in thinking, we say there are three kinds of thinkers. They are simple to simple thinkers. So people who delve in no complexity, they take a simple idea or a simple thought and express it as a simple thought, and there's no value added, right? That's useless. Then they are simple to complex thinkers, right? So people who start with simplicity, but their output is so complex that it does not lead to anything new, no new creation, and you can't comprehend. And they're complex to simple thinkers. So we all want to delve into complexity, but we want to reduce it to simplicity. And to my mind, writing is a tool which helps you do that. It helps you craft, right? And writing, and a big part of writing actually, Vineeta, is editing. Right? I mean, what to leave out. And I keep telling people that, less is more. So my previous boss at Grey, my global head of strategy, right? He's the guy who's behind the whole MasterCard campaign. For everything else, there's MasterCard Priceless and Intel Inside campaign and so on and so forth. And he kept pushing me, saying that, any piece of paper or even a PowerPoint slide, please use it like precious real estate. Right? And he kept pushing us to say, write as less as possible. So he would edit almost everything out. He would reduce things to one sentence, one word. So a whole reductionist, approach to writing helps clarify your thought and helps make your thinking precise and sharp, is what my learning has been.
Wonderfully put. Dheeraj, I was taking notes when you're saying this, because I really want to repeat this in one of my classes. This is good. I think you're right. We have to pay more attention to our writing. I just wanted to ask you, I mean, there are a lot of people who do MBA. How many of a big advertising marketing agency like you, do you employ people who have just done an MBA from a top college? Does it work, or do you think that is a mismatch?
No, we do. In fact, we have a very robust both postgraduate and undergraduate program. So we hire from places like MICA, right? We hire from places like NID, IITs. We hire from undergrad places. Well, we hire from Ashoka, we hire from Hindu, we hire from all the advertising schools. So we hire from Simbi. So there are lots of MBAs, there are a lot of communication graduates, there are engineers, there are NID graduates, there are also undergrads, psychology honors, economics honors, who work with us. So we hire a whole variety of people, and MBAs form the staple of our strategy and account management function.
Okay. What about the creative side? Do you think MBA may kill our creativity?
Actually, yes and no. But I mean, if you realize, a lot of very, very senior and successful creative talent in the industry are ex-IITs or ex-MBAs, right? So, Ashish Khajanchi, who runs Enormous and is a creative head, is an IM MBA, right? Nitesh, who was the creative lead of Leo Burnett earlier, is now into filmmaking, is ex-IIT. So there are lots of those people, but these are also the people you have to say they are the misfits of those batches, right? They aren't really the guys who went for investment banking from those batches. So we do have a lot of people coming from there, but most of them have been dissatisfied with the regular job. Even now, I mean, we often get applications from somebody who's done LSC plus 4 years, or somebody who's done MICA plus 5 years at some consulting company and desperately trying to get out because that linear job is not giving them that satisfaction. But you do need that bit of restlessness. You do need that bit of what we call kida for creativity to be able to succeed here.
Yeah, I understand. Okay. I know that you do your own podcast as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, so Leo Burnett, we call ourselves a new age agency, and we are the agency for the platform world. And one of the new platforms is podcasting, right? And I was talking to IVM, who are big time into podcasts, and we were thinking collaboration and so on and so forth. And I said, what better way to learn a new form than to do it yourself? And I said, okay, let me do some podcasts. So it started by saying, okay, let's put together 5 episodes. And I honestly hate my voice, so I was like, I don't know whether I'll be able to pull this through. And we put together 5 episodes, and I enjoyed the process. What I enjoyed, Vineeta, was that 1 hour of capsule conversation with a leader, right, who spent 15 years, 20 years doing something. There's so much to learn from. I mean, you learn almost everything that this person has done in 10 years or 15 years of their life in 1 hour. And I started learning new things. I was talking to founders, I was talking to influencers, I was talking to other CEOs. And it turned out to be my 1 hour of conversation. And I enjoyed this so much that then we did a full 1 season, then we did a full 2nd season, and we've got now about almost 200,000 plus listens. So we're now getting into 3rd season. So now it's got a life of its own.
Yes, exactly. All right, cool. I want you to sort of give us some advice, especially to our younger listeners who are starting their careers or, restarting their careers, going into the next level. What would you suggest?
I know this is the scariest part, right? I mean, I always fumble when I have to give any advice, but I would say the basics, right? I would say
business. How to succeed in the corporate world? How do you succeed in business?
I think one thing that I look for in young people is their energy and their desire to do more. Right? Because as an organization at Leo Burnett, we throw a lot at young people, right? And if they're willing to catch, I mean, I honestly feel that if I had the opportunities that this generation had today, I would love it, right? I mean, it took me 7 years to get out of the shadow of my boss, right? Today, you're in year 1 and we throw you to go and talk to a client. Right. So I would say the first thing is embrace as much as you can. These are the times to embrace things, to do everything, to learn everything, to do more. And if you are doing everything, it goes back to the question I said, that ask what am I doing for the organization versus ask what is the organization doing for me. Right. And it will always hold you in a good stand. It will always hold you in a good stand. So that's been my mantra of saying, do more than you've been asked to do. I think if we are able to do that one simple thing, I think there is no stopping us.
That's great. Thanks, Dheeraj. Thank you for your time. I think we've had a very short conversation, but I really have enjoyed it. And there is so much that we can take away from this conversation. We hope you will come to our campus sometime and meet with our students and talk to them a little bit more. And this is just the beginning of many other engagements that we can have with you, Dheeraj.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Vineeta.
You were listening to SPJIMR's ThoughtCast, produced by Vineeta Dwivedi, edited by Raghav Kumar, production support by Raghav Dalhan, Aditya Bothra, and Anish Ravishankar. Thank you.